Voters will be asked as well, not only if they wish to have a new or the return of the current President of Ireland, but whether we wish to change the Constitution to remove the word blasphemy from that Constitution. At present, the Constitution says publishing or saying something blasphemous is an offence punishable under law. Blasphemy is currently a criminal offence. Joining me now to discuss this referendum in more detail is Dr. Ali Selim from the Islamic Cultural Centre of Ireland and Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland. Good morning to you both. Thank you for joining us. I'll come to you first, Michael. Do you want to give me some background on this? I mean, it is literally about the deletion or the possible deletion of just one word from the Constitution. It's a subsection of Article 40, and where it talks about the publication or utterance of blasphemous, seditious or indecent matter is an offence which shall be punishable in accordance with law.
Yeah, that's in the 1937 Constitution, and because of that, the government have felt that they have to have on the statute books a law making blasphemy an offence, and they recently strengthened that by defining it to make it enforceable.
It took them a long time. It was only introduced about 10 years ago or so, isn't that right?
Well, it was introduced into law in 1960, but the only time it was tested, the courts found that it wasn't enforceable because it didn't include a definition of what the offence consisted of. And so then when they were updating the Defamation Act generally, within which it resides, about 10 years ago, everyone assumed they would take that opportunity to remove the blasphemy clause, as had been recommended by all sorts of groups, from the Law Reform Commission, the Constitutional Review Group, the All-Party Committee on the Constitution. Everybody had said, look, it's anachronistic. But instead, Dermot Ahern decided to add in a definition to make it enforceable.
Yeah, and the Act says that a person publishes or utters something blasphemous if they publish or say something that is grossly abusive or insulting in relation to matters held sacred by any religion, thereby causing outrage among a substantial number of the adherents of that religion, and also if they intend to cause that outrage.
Yeah.
And if you're found guilty, you could be fined up to
€25,000.
Ali Selim, why is it important in your view to retain this provision into the Constitution?
Well, we don't see any need to remove it, you see, because the logical reason for us is, why do we need to remove that? Basically, we see legislation as something that organizes a relationship among various components of one and the same society. Anything that encourages a pluralistic approach, anything that encourages respect, anything that encourages good relationship among members of one and the same society, we see this as a very progressive step that turns every citizen and every resident in this country into an asset to the society that we live in, positively contribute to that society.
Michael Nugent, are there things that you would like to say that you feel constrained from saying as an atheist and a representative of Atheist Ireland, that it would be possible for you to say if this article is deleted, or sorry, if this word is deleted?
Well, the difficulty with the law is that whether or not something is illegal is determined by whether people are outraged by it. So it actually incentivizes people to show outrage when somebody says something that they find disagreeable. And I think I agree completely with Ali that we should be respectful of people. I don't think that extends to being respectful of the content of people's beliefs. I think you can disagree with ideas. And one of the difficulties, I know I've been told before various broadcast interviews, thankfully I haven't done it here today, but I've been warned before various live interviews, don't say anything that's blasphemous. We've had articles that we have submitted to print publications that have been either edited or rejected because of concern about blasphemy. So while the law hasn't been formally enforced, one of the reasons for that is that many media outlets choose to self-censor themselves because they just don't want to get involved in even the possibility of a blasphemy case.
I think in the current legislation that we're having, it does not curtail people's practice in terms of disagreement and expressing their opinions. We have a number of academic books, articles in different papers agreeing and disagreeing about 1001 and one things. And this does not cause any outrage among people, or people do not try to use the blasphemy legislation against them. You see, but basically, my understanding of that legislation is that it does not allow mockery behaviors for what people believe is something holy. And I think if we compare the Irish situation here, the peaceful coexistence and the coherence of the society that people are enjoying, to countries, European countries who do not have similar legislation, then we can clearly see the difference.
Michael, I'm just struck by something that happened in the last 36 hours or thereabouts. Now, maybe this might be stretching a point, but those scenes in the aftermath of that Conor McGregor fight in Las Vegas, right, against Khabib Nurmagomedov, and when all of the brawl unfolded, his explanation afterwards was that McGregor, he talked about my father, my religion, my country, and the rest of it. Right now, he saw his religion was attacked. I mean, is this not necessarily, or could this not be seen as a kind of a break on extreme provocation that could lead to violence?
Well, I think it's actually the opposite. If you look around the world, the countries where there is most extreme violence related to religion is countries where there are blasphemy laws. And Pakistan is a good example. Just today, there's a woman called Asia Bibi, a Christian woman, who's facing execution for allegedly blaspheming against Muhammad. And her last appeal is today. And Pakistan at the United Nations, when Ireland and other European countries have asked them to remove their blasphemy law, like to point to the Irish law as an example of Western hypocrisy. And that's a very important point there in terms of that international dimension, because it's not just that it would be a good thing to get rid of the blasphemy law, but it's breaching our human rights obligations under international human rights treaties, and the UN Human Rights Committee has told us that we have to remove it for that reason.
It's not just Pakistan, Ali Selim. I mean, there are other countries like Malaysia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, which have a strong culture of blasphemy laws, and they enforce them. The results can often be very violent.
Well, I think comparing the Pakistani situation to the Irish situation is very much unfair, because they are based in a different part of the world. They have different culture, and also the Pakistani society is entirely different to the society here in Ireland. But the fair comparison, in my opinion, is maybe the Irish situation to the French situation. Like, we have seen people of various communities that have a wide range of various beliefs and no belief as well, and that cohesiveness that we are enjoying in Ireland is because we've got the right recipe for that: respect and mutual respect. And if we see a country like France, for example, that the society might not be made of so many communities like we're having in Ireland, that their history in integration and immigration is much bigger than the Irish situation. However, if we compare the French situation to the Irish situation, we are winning the situation.
And Michael Nugent, I suppose people on your side of this debate would say that, look, if there's a concern about hate crime, there are already laws that can address that. But can you be so sure?
Well, there's the laws against incitement to hatred, which include religious hatred. There's the Public Order Act. There's just the general laws. The Venice Commission, which is the body that advises Council of Europe members on constitutional issues, did a report a few years ago on the balance between freedom of expression and freedom of belief. And they concluded that incitement to hatred on the ground of religion should be illegal, but that blasphemy should be lawful.
Well, I think incitement to hatred, that does exist in our legislation, but we don't have in our legislation hate crime legislation, and we see the blasphemy legislation is a shield of protection. And we're not talking about just the Muslim community, but we're talking about people of all faiths and no faith as well.
Well, it doesn't protect people of no faith, of course. You can say what you like about atheism, and it's not covered because the blasphemy law only protects religious beliefs.
Have you ever been offended by anything anybody ever said about atheism?
I've been offended by a lot of things in the Christian Bible and the Quran, but I don't believe that should cause them to be censored or banned.
Just give me an example, please. I can't find. Can you help me understand?
Well, I think for me, as an atheist, I would find some of the commands in those sacred texts, for example, to stone a man to death for gathering sticks on the Sabbath, or to stone a woman to death for not being a virgin on her wedding night, or to cut off the hands of thieves, or various things like that. I find those offensive, but I don't believe that should cause those books to be banned.
Well, I would say to you that actually basically the examples that you've mentioned, just throwing them like this on the table is very much unfair to the people who would hold these books as holy to them. Like the example that you've mentioned are more or less symbolic things to organize the society, but very hard to believe. And just to say that if a woman when marrying is proved to be not virgin, she will be stoned to death, I can tell you that this does not exist in any holy book.
And Michael Nugent, again, a point made by people who come at this from the standpoint of Ali Selim is that nobody has the right to abuse the God that they believe in.
Well, of course you do. You have the right to abuse any idea that you want. I don't think that you should disrespect people. A kind of rule of thumb that we use is no person.
But if you attack their ideas that they hold dear and so preciously.
No, well, that's one of the ways that we try to advance as a society, is by making nuanced distinctions like that. That freedom of expression and freedom of belief are not contradictory. That they are one and the same part.
Yeah, but Michael, if people if you speak to a Muslim, for example, I will say to you that for me, the respect for the Prophet Muhammad, or the position of the Prophet Muhammad in my life, is more important than my life. I will tell you, if you have the choice either to take my life or not to offend me with regard to the Prophet Muhammad, I'll say take my life then.
Yeah, no interest in taking your life, Ali, but the point is that you're perfectly entitled to believe that and feel that as strongly as you want, but you shouldn't, or we shouldn't, criminalise people for thinking the opposite.
No, but what we are saying, you see, you can say I don't believe in the Prophet. You can say that I think what he said is not for me, or so. That is 100% accepted. But if you mock at him, that is not accepted.
Well, we used to have that attitude to Catholicism in Ireland. In fact, another place where the blasphemy law resides, by the way, is in the Censorship Act. And back in the 1970s and 80s, Monty Python's Life of Brian was banned for blasphemy. So we used to have that attitude in Ireland, but we've moved on, and I would hope that we will continue to with regards to this referendum.
Sorry, but the moving on, the practical question here is, what common good does it achieve?
The common good is respecting the human rights of freedom of belief and freedom of expression, as we have signed up to in human rights treaties, saying that we will.
But you're saying respecting, and I don't think that you're respecting our belief in this way.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you both indeed for coming in. That referendum is on Friday, the 26th of this month. That's 2 weeks from next Friday.